The views and opinions of the Jonathan Kinloch Show are not those of WADL Detroit.
Welcome to the Jonathan Kinloch Show. Today on the Jonathan Kinloch Show, we'll be having a conversation with Andy McLemore. Andy McLemore is a second-generation business owner here in the city of Detroit. He's also a philanthropist who has given monies to community groups and organizations around the city of Detroit. He's definitely an individual who practices what he preaches and what he believes in, and that is the city of Detroit. Andrew McLemore has had his hand in the crafting of many policies that have affected both the city of Detroit and the state of Michigan. Well, one policy that he definitely has his hand in is the crafting of the initiative that will appear on the November ballot, allowing for additional casino gaming in the state of Michigan. And when we come back, we're going to have a conversation with Andy McLemore. Welcome back to the Jonathan Kinloch Show. The November ballot will have a number of initiatives that have reached that will reach the voters, that the voters will have their say in how they want their government to operate on a number of different fronts. We have here in the studio Andy McLemore. Andy McLemore is a Detroit businessman who is part of the Citizens for More Michigan Jobs. The Citizens for More Michigan Jobs circulated petitions and gathered over 500,000 signatures to have an amendment to the Michigan Constitution, to Article 4, Section 41, to allow for tax revenues to be generated from casino gaming, or additional tax revenues to be generated from casino gaming here in the state of Michigan. As you know, that law or that amendment was initially created in 2004, which provided and allowed for the current casino gaming that is located in the city of Detroit. I want to welcome Andy McLemore to the show. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm doing fine, but you know, this November ballot is going to have a lot of stuff on there.
It sure will. It sure will. There have been more ballot initiatives, I think, than ever before in the state of Michigan.
Well, this initiative, from what I'm hearing, gathered 500-something thousand signatures that were filed.
Yes.
And that is a major showing for circulating petitions. And you all didn't have that much time to circulate. So you all that was incredible. You had to have a major operation.
We collected 509,777 signatures in a period of about 6 to 7 weeks.
Wow, that's amazing.
As a matter of fact, the most that for a statewide initiative that have ever been gotten out of the city of Detroit were about 30,000. We collected over 60,000 signatures out of the city of Detroit alone.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yes.
And the city of Detroit would benefit from this particular amendment or modification to the current, or amendment to the current provisions in the state constitution.
Absolutely.
Now, there's some folks who are saying that this amendment is going to erode some of the restrictions and some of the safety nets that were put in place in 2004, along with the other thought that those restrictions that were put in there were to benefit the current casinos. What's your take on it?
Well, two things. The original ballot initiative was passed statewide back in '96. In 2004, what you have is an amendment to our state's constitution that was driven by the 3 Detroit casinos that basically lock out the lottery from doing certain things and lock out any expansion of casino gaming in the state. So what our legislation does, it goes back and it cleans up some issues not only for the state, not only for the lottery, but also for the city of Detroit. And we think it makes it a whole lot better, because one of the things we're doing is we're increasing the taxes On the 3 existing casinos in the state, it's increasing from 19% to 23%, and we're generating another 8 casinos that will pay 23% tax also.
Well, there is some thought that the casinos, as they are currently operating, are adding to the problems, financial problems for many of the folks who are actually going to these casinos, because you have high unemployment, and yet you have this option of entertainment for individuals, and it's an option that folks are basically visiting these entertainment establishments to their own detriment. We have high foreclosure rate here in the state of Michigan. How do you counter the concerns as it relates to those issues that some of these people are bringing upon themselves?
Jonathan, good question. And I think really the answer in that question was answered when the casinos opened in 2000 and what we've seen moving forward. Normally, those kind of concerns come up in areas where you have no casinos because people don't know. And here we are in Detroit. We've had casinos now for about 11 years. Also, remember, there are 21 Native American casinos across the state. So it's not like we just have casinos in the city of Detroit. You've got 21 Native American casinos across the state, all the way in the UP. So we do have a plethora of casinos across. So a number of the issues that you talk about are the social ills we really haven't seen. I mean, we've had more devastation in the city of Detroit from the auto industry and its decline, from a number of other supportive industries to the automobile industry. But if you look at the workers in the casinos, they are the only unions that haven't had to have any concessions. They're moving forward, and their wages are relatively high compared to everyone else.
Okay, we have the Native American casinos. We have the casinos that are located in the city of Detroit. There has to be a number that where it's too many. Where's that saturation number?
But see, we are the only state that is always trying to limit what we have. I mean, look at Vegas. There is no limit in Vegas. They continue to go and grow. If you look at Atlantic City, they had 11 casinos last year. They just opened their 12th casino this year. They have a 13th casino planned. We're sitting here with 3, and we're saying, oh, hold it. That's enough. That's enough. In Detroit, we have this problem. We seem not to be able to count past 3. Maybe it's because of the automotive industry. You know, it is what it is, right? You know, we pushed Toyota away when they were looking to come here. Mercedes is down in Alabama. We need to begin to count beyond the number 3.
Well, I guess 3 is the magic number for some folks.
Well, it may be, but
I mean, they're cashing out of it. The 3, the magic number.
Well, yeah, the 3 here, we have the 3 most profitable casinos in the country with MGM, Motor City, and what Greektown is doing.
Well, why are they saying that they continue to see their revenues drop, or is that just a scare tactic right now?
Look, over the past 10 years, their revenues have increased over 41%.
We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Andy McLemore in regards to this ballot initiative to create more casinos, more jobs in Michigan on the November ballot. Welcome back to the Jonathan Kinloch Show. Andy, the thought of more jobs, or the statement of more jobs being created, was a major reason why the voters approved the creation of or allowing of casinos in the first instance. Are these jobs? It was jobs as well as entertainment, as well as just making Detroit a destination spot and all that other stuff there. Is that pretty much what you all are trying to say as well?
Yeah, we are, but what we're doing is we're correcting some of the things that happened. You know, if we go way back, understand, I was involved in the process as early as 94, 95 as a partner in Atwater. Atwater is what the voters passed in the city of Detroit for a casino, a riverboat casino. It eventually morphed into Motor City. I was one of the partners in Motor City Casino. It was bought out in 2005 by Marion Illich, But going all the way back to 2003 and 2004, I was part of a redevelopment of the Michigan State Fairground. We were going to develop it into a thoroughbred racetrack. We were going to have slot machines there. It was going to be known as a racino. There were going to be video lottery terminals, again, creating more jobs. There were going to be 10 of them across the state. However, what the casinos did is they kind of locked themselves in. They kind of hoodwinked the voters in Detroit and said it's a voters' rights issue. The voters in Detroit helped pass it statewide, and it froze what we have. We're frozen in time. Other states around us are changing the laws. They're looking at adding land-based casinos in Chicago. We've seen the recent initiative down in Ohio where they've added 4. They're also adding racinos throughout the state. And here in Michigan, we can't do any of that. We can't do any of that without the vote of the people, and that's what we're doing.
Well, the city of Detroit is seeing some horrible economic times right now.
Absolutely.
It's going through a downturn that folks just feel as if there's no end in sight. The city's tax base is dwindling. The city leadership seems to not have any idea or any plans on how to turn that revenue decline around. How would these additional casinos benefit both the city and its citizens who desperately need jobs? Because I get tired of folks bringing these development plans saying, oh, it's going to create jobs, it's going to create jobs. What is the temporary number and permanent number of jobs that would be created from this initiative?
Jonathan, I'm so glad you asked that question. Let me tell you, what happens here with this initiative is, A, we raise the tax on the 3 existing casinos from 19% to 23%. We're going to add a 4th casino to the city of Detroit. That will generate at least another $300+ million in revenue for that casino. If you assume all of that, and you can assume even a 10% decrease in the revenue of the other 3, what happens is, with the new tax structure, of the 23%, 60% of all of those taxes go to the city of Detroit. So that means the city of Detroit will see, under our proposal, at least another $65 million a year over the $155 million it's getting today in strict, purely gaming tax. And with the advent and what we're bringing also as part of our legislation is sports betting, the city could receive an additional $175 million in revenue. So it would have over $322 million worth of revenue from casinos alone, just in the gaming tax. It has nothing to do with the payroll tax, has nothing to do with the property tax.
But let's also talk about some of the items that you also included in your legislation. The city of Detroit would receive revenue, but there are some other entities that would receive some revenue from these. From the outstate,
casinos.
Absolutely.
The outstate casinos have a different tax structure. But if we finish on the city of Detroit, what we will see is we will generate an additional 3,000 plus jobs for the city of Detroit. Those are direct jobs. The total package will generate somewhere between 16 and 20,000 jobs statewide. So that's huge.
These are permanent jobs, not just temporary from the construction.
Absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely.
A lot of times you have folks burying those, mushing those numbers together.
We're talking about permanent jobs, and we're talking about good paying jobs.
Well, also we hear this talk about local ownership. That was a big selling pitch for the initial 3 casinos. Then something happened. All the local owners were basically thrown to the wolves, and the local ownership piece, which was a major reason why voters approved it, no longer exists.
Right.
No longer exists.
And that's one of the other reasons why we're going about this again. Today we have 3 casinos in the city of Detroit. MGM is owned 100% by folks in Vegas, owned by MGM. There is no local ownership in MGM here. I don't care what you hear. Your viewers need to know there is no local ownership in MGM. There is also now no local ownership in Greektown Casino. It is owned by a couple hedge funds out of New York. All of the profits go to New York. So we have 2 right there. All the profits going to Vegas, and to New York.
But what would prevent this from happening under this new initiative?
Well,
because I understand, and we talk about a free market, you have to allow folks to be able to make business transactions for the benefit of the business, but you're pretty much a big part of why citizens are even looking at this again is local ownership.
Absolutely. And currently today in Detroit Casino Partnership, we have over 120 investors. Most of them are in Michigan. A lot of them live in the city of Detroit. Those that aren't in Michigan have Detroit ties. They used to live here or they grew up here, and they care about their city and they're investing back. What we've done is this time we've structured it a lot differently. I mean, there is no RFP package or process. The developers of the language and the developers of
so
each
you've
of
already
these casinos,
designated the casinos. Did you designate or have you included in there where they will be located?
The locations are in the language, so nobody has to be worried about a casino going in some area that they were concerned about.
Riverfront, like they shut down, destroyed the whole riverfront with the last
yeah, they
site.
did. They did.
But
that's one of our sites. We have two sites that are built in the language. One is the old, as we call it, the Pontchartrain site, to go in those vacant buildings across from the Cobo Hall. The other is the East Riverfront and taking some of the land over there and redeveloping and putting a beautiful casino, hotel complex on our side of the river. Let's give Windsor something to look at for a change as opposed to some vacant land that they've been looking at for, at least the past 8-9 years.
Well, we're going to take this break, and when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Andy McLemore here on the Jonathan Kinloch Show. Welcome back to the Jonathan Kinloch Show. We've been having a conversation with Andy McLemore and this ballot initiative to create more jobs as well as more casinos. And there are some other perspectives to this, and those perspectives are pretty much coming from the state attorney general, who filed some lawsuits. From my understanding, it's kind of confusing because they're bringing the intent and interpretation challenges before the people have actually had an opportunity to vote on these. So I know there's some pending litigation there. So.
Yeah, in fact, they will be in court today, and hopefully those will be resolved. But from our standpoint,
today is the day of the taping.
Yes,
right.
But from our perspective, all those things will get resolved and should be resolved, and the voters will see this on the ballot. Yeah, we've had a lot of interesting challenges, but as I've said, our language is pretty solid. As a matter of fact, some of the original writers of the language and the original writers of the changes to the Constitution back in 2004 were the new authors of what we put together. So,
well, part of this language identify the locations where these casinos will be constructed. Yes. What went into determining these locations? Because we saw what happened with the last selection process, where you had the East River along the Franklin Street, where you had a number of businesses that were long-standing. Rhinoceros and some other establishments were shut down because absolutely there was some thought that casinos would be built there. No casinos built. The community, the tax dollars, the whole area, as you said, is wiped out.
Yeah. One of the things that we did this time is we like to use a term called, as we say, lessons learned. We've learned from what happened in '96. We've learned from what happened in '94. We've learned from what happened in 2009 in Ohio. So what we did is we tried to craft language that kind of built on everything that was done in the past and corrected a lot of the concerns that the voters and the people and all of the government entities have. Location was a big one. So we as done in Ohio, we narrowed down the locations and we wrote the locations in. As they talked about putting one out in Oakland County, some of the things we heard in the focus groups was, well, hey, we don't want one in downtown Birmingham, or we don't want one in Royal Oak. Well, how do you ensure that? Well, you write the language in. And the one in Oakland County will be at the Pontiac Silverdome. And everybody felt comfortable with that.
But even, I served 9 years on the Detroit Board of Zoning Appeals. Even there's the devil's in the detail, the actual site plan, the actual dimensions of the actual casinos.
Right.
So
Now,
are you taking into account local zoning ordinances?
All of those things have to get approved.
Okay.
So the base location is there. However, once the voters approved, then the developers have to work with the local zoning boards. They have to do all of the proper building things. We have to work with the Michigan Gaming Control Board. We have to work with the Michigan Liquor Commission. We have to go through all of the approval processes that everybody else has to go through. However, what is defined is a geographic area that you can do this within. So none of that goes away. It's all there. It just says that, hey, you can't build this thing any place you want. You got to build it within this prescribed area that was written into the language.
You know what was very problematic for me was this agreement the city of Detroit entered into, what I call a perpetuity agreement with these three casinos as it relates to the licensing.
Right.
A lot of states have short licensing requirements, licensing, I guess, terms, but yet, I'm saying before they expire, I'd say, or
right.
come back up for review.
Right.
Where does that fall here? Because I forget what the length of the agreements were with these current casinos, but there was some ridiculous number. I can't remember.
And you're talking about what some of Detroit's previous administrations entered into. As most folks recall, and we were part of it, the three casinos in the city of Detroit were going to build 800 hotel rooms. They had
it kept shrinking.
Yes,
it was incredible.
It's 400 now. There was going to be a fund of over $60 million
to help with local businesses, the
with,
incubator,
yes,
and all.
And they did away with all of that. So a lot of what the voters and the people were promised, a lot of what we were promised as partners in the original Motor City, they all went away. And it's unfortunate. And what we're looking to do is to correct some of that, and we've done that in the language. The other big thing that I think is...
Please speak to some of the corrective language that you put in here, because you've just laid it out. A lot of promises made, very few kept, except for profits for the owners.
One of the biggest things that we did in this language this time is 60% of the 23% of all four casinos goes to the city of Detroit. However, it is earmarked. It is earmarked for one thing, and that is public safety. It will fund police and fire. Okay, and as a resident in the city of Detroit, and all residents know, the one thing that we need is police and fire protection. I mean, right now they're looking at another millage to say to the folks in the city of Detroit, hey, we want you to pay more so you can have police and fire. I mean, they came back a few years ago and said, hey, you got to pay more for trash pickup.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm sitting there saying, well, why am I paying?
Oxygen in a minute. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Just breathe in the city.
Right. And why, you know, why are we paying property taxes today? What do we get for that? You know, street lights aren't working that well, but public safety is a major issue. And that's one of the things that we did. The other thing we did with the state money is it's directed to K-12. We've had some discussions earlier about the lottery and how they've taken away general fund money.
You all forgot about the libraries, poor libraries.
Well, you know, we couldn't get them all. We couldn't address everything.
Absolutely.
The other thing we put money in there for is for road repair and construction. I'm tired of buying tires, hitting potholes, and, you know, my wheels getting bent. But the other thing, Jonathan, we didn't talk about, and let me run through it real quick so the folks outside the city of Detroit know what they're getting. With the 7 casinos outside the state, they will pay 23% also. 30% will go to K-12, 20% will go to the host city, 20% will go to the host county, 20% will go to a statewide police and public safety fund that will go to every city, village, and township in the state of Michigan.
Well, look, we're out of time, but definitely we'll have you back on because we want to let folks know how all of these initiatives that will be on the ballot will either help them or hurt them. And I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Jonathan.
I know of no safe repository of the ultimate power of society but the people. And if we think them not enlightened enough, the remedy is not to take power from them, but to inform them by education. That's what I hope we do here on the Jonathan Kinloch Show, educate you and inform you each week. We'll be back with you next week, same time, same station. Have a great week.